Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Arkham Horror Podcast with me and Daniel from Quick Learner. How's it going, Daniel?
Pretty good. Ready to talk for another hour, almost exactly an hour of Arkham with you.
Yeah, I'm excited too. We're going to try to get to as close as that hour mark as possible so you guys have a bunch of just relaxing Arkham vibes as we're here to talk about this wonderful game for the next little bit. We have some talking points that we're going to go through today, but we also are going to just have this general discussion, talk about just basically what we do whenever we're done a recording or when we're about to lead up into a recording session. So it's just kind of these vibes as well.
Yeah.
So for today's topic was actually you brought something up, so I'll let you kind of introduce this whole thing here for this video.
Okay, so I've got a cool talking point just sort of based on recent experience a few days ago. I joined an in-person group kind of midway through their campaign. So I know two of the people already. We had talked about playing Arkham for a while, and then I was like, "Hey, want to play Arkham?" And they said, "Hey, actually, we're in the middle of a campaign right now where we've played three scenarios of Path to Carcosa, and we're playing a four-player group, and our fourth person dropped out after the first scenario. You know, scheduling is tough, especially in person." And they were playing a Nathaniel Cho deck, and for the second and third scenarios, the other three players, like, I guess, rotated between two-handing it or something. I'm not totally sure what happened, but I was like, you know what? I'll join it. This guy was the lead investigator, so he had the Man in the Pallid Mask in his deck. So I said, sure, I'll just take the deck and play it. Sounds like fun to me. So they're going right into the Unspeakable Oath, and they've never played the campaign before. Obviously, I have, and I just wanted to experience what that was like for they're not, I wouldn't say like new players. They haven't really played through that many campaigns before, but people who are not like living and breathing this game like we are, and just what's it like to play a four-player game, and especially with this banger of a scenario. So I had a great time. It was so much fun, but I felt like I learned a lot from just the experience of I'm not able to talk out all of the turns with
Mm-hmm.
someone like you, knowing what's going to happen, what's around every wall in the asylum. And sometimes in our bubble we kind of forget about, like, how do normal people play the game? How do they approach some of the challenges? And you actually do have a lot of experience with this,
Mm-hmm.
maybe in a slightly different way, with playing with Eric. So I wanted to talk about it with you today on the podcast.
Yeah, so I think this is a very interesting thing to kind of just discuss here because we don't really get that feeling anymore. Like, we get it very briefly on our first blind play of like a new
Mhm.
campaign, right? Like, that's why I love blind plays as much as I do, because when it comes time to start, like playing Arkham just completely blind again, I cherish that moment. And it's been fun playing through all the campaigns with Eric because it's kind of blind again. I get to kind of like live that vicariously through Eric.
Mhm.
Like, obviously spoilers for Unspeakable Oath here, but when Eric delved too deep, when he was when they were right on the exit of resigning from the yard, I was like, oh, here we go. This is something I'm not going to correct. I'm just going to let this happen because this is like an Arkham moment that I can't take away from Eric here.
Yeah, I'd do the same thing. I mean, I'm just cut to the chase that we did not get locked in the asylum.
That's
Four
good.
player is very different than two player, but
Yeah.
I did tell them afterwards. I was like, yeah, if we hadn't gotten out, sorry, you got to play from a zero XP deck next scenario.
Yeah.
And they're like, what? But we had a good amount of time left, but it wasn't that things were going super smooth the whole time. So I don't play that much four player, but there was a little bit of like, okay, yeah, there's a lot of time when
Yeah.
you have the ability to split up on the map like we did. And that's another experience, like not playing the scenario at higher player counts too much at all. I mean, I played at three player a good amount, but not as much as two player. But to sort of revisit what the scenario is like and how you play the scenario with a larger player group, especially when there were the biggest thing that I think surprised me from the new player perspective And maybe it's just, again, we metagame the hell out of these scenarios these days, but they wanted to just explore the heck out of the map.
Yeah, yeah. They're just like,
They're
I
like,
want to
let's
see
go in
all
the
the
garden.
locations. And you were like,
Yeah.
I don't think we should. In the back of your mind, you were like,
Exactly. So, they're running up like, let's go over to the garden. I'm like, what's her name is going to spawn in a little bit. I don't say the scores out loud. But I'm just thinking like, okay,
Yeah, you just take a little peek at the campaign log. Did they light everybody on fire? Did they kill any of the lunatics here? Yeah.
I did ask them that, and no, they did not. So, whew, but it's just part of the fun of seeing a little bit different version of the playthroughs when you don't just do the optimal thing every time. And again, it turned out fine, but that was the most surprising thing, that they just wanted to move around and a lot of backtracking. Even when I'm not gonna say I pushed it, but the act says something like, "Look for Daniel Chesterfield. He is in the basement." I'm like, why aren't we going in the basement?
Yeah. Yeah.
But we got there.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing that I find very tough to do with like with Eric too. And this actually you've talked with me in the past about where sometimes on a blind play there is like a twist that like a gotcha kind of thing, and it feels really bad when it happens. And like the idea is, are those things good or are they bad, right? Like I lean more to the side that I enjoy the gotchas for myself personally, because they feel like I'm being tricked. And it's like when you're watching a movie or you're reading a story and the main character gets like bamboozled and suddenly they're in a pit and they need to get out of it, right? I really like that, but I also respect that not everybody is like me in that regards. So that's why sometimes with Eric, I was like, you know what, maybe you do stand here instead. I'm like, just, this location is about to be bad. I ultimately stopped doing that because I realized Eric, like me, also enjoyed the bad feelings that could happen when like the game just turns it against you suddenly. But it is really interesting, like, and kind of like the guidance too, like the spoiler-free guidance. So you just like look at the act and you're like, hey, what is it? Doesn't this say he's in the basement? We should maybe go down to the, I think I'm going to go to the basement, and you hope someone follows you without being like, you MFers need to get in this basement with me right now,
Yeah. And again, we're not trying to like critique this other kind of game style. In fact, I think we have a lot to learn from just watching how other people engage with the game, because that is kind of the normal way people do it. And from the designer standpoint too, they're trying to see like, how do people look at the cards, read the cards? Are they getting the hints or not? Like, does it matter or not? Ultimately, I think in 4-player it doesn't matter too much. Like, eventually you'll get there. But yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of interesting to see how people just play the game without our experience, and you can't get rid of the experience. I wish I could. I wish I could go in, having forgotten everything. But I can't. I mean, I still love playing the game with all the knowledge too. So we wouldn't be playing if that weren't the case.
It like changes the perspective that the game has, where it's less about the surprise, but more you become more acutely aware of how the encounter deck can kill you or how it is currently dealing with you. When the blind play, and this is something that I often say on the channel, the blind play is the strongest play you're ever going to have a scenario, because you don't have any informational baggage weighing you down, right? If, for example, you're playing Unspeakable Oath and you're constantly thinking, I'm going to get stuck in here, or alternatively, my movement matters so much, I'm going to lose all this movement, or when you play an asset and you're like, I'm going to lose this to a straitjacket next turn, right? Or alternatively, I'm not going to play this asset because the straitjacket's just around the corner. A new player doing their blind play, or you doing your own blind play, isn't going to play with that knowledge. And you're going to make decisions that ultimately push you forward in a way that is more efficient than if you're constantly overanalyzing everything you know because of the knowledge you have. It's why when we played Innsmouth for the first time, we got all the keys in Too Deep, and we haven't really been able to replicate it since. Slight spoilers, I'm going to say a slight spoiler here. For Eric's blind play of Innsmouth, guess what we did? We got all the keys on Too Deep. And a big reason for that is Eric and I's deck are both very good for this one, but it's because of that. I asked Eric, I was like, there is something that we have to do that is a little bit push your luck. Do you want to go for it? And Eric was like, I think we can go for it. And if I was playing today, I'd probably be like, I don't know. I know what this scenario can do. Like, if you asked me the same question, I'd be like, I know what this scenario would do. It can turn on a dime and suddenly you're dead. So I would say, no, let's just go. But Eric said, let's do it. Eric even chose to advance the Doom a turn earlier so we could get there quicker. Another thing that I would have been like, ugh, I don't know if I should do that. That seems really bad. But lo and behold, we did it because of that blind play like boost of not having the baggage of knowing what the scenario can do. I think even though we say like, why aren't you going into the basement? Like screaming, why aren't you going to the basement? We really should be looking at, why am I so worried? Like, why am I carrying so much information negatively for this scenario?
Yeah, I agree for the most part. Of course, we've played enough where even with the knowledge and we're trying to do all of that, we still get locked in the basement or whatever, right? I think maybe, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe your point is that a lot of what the scenario does is not hinging on one encounter card or one decision like that. Like when things go bad, it's usually a confluence, right? Like we just didn't have, I mean, we both got locked in the basement last time we played this. So we're speaking from that experience. Like there were a number of things that went wrong there. It wasn't just we didn't move there a turn earlier than we ended up doing, something like that. And I think the blind play, you're just kind of playing your game and you're probably not trying to do anything else too silly. So things tend to work themselves out. That's kind of how I felt about this particular scenario. Again, 4-player solved a lot of problems, but I'll talk about the deck building itself later too, because there's a lot of other, like, I wouldn't say the same thing about what you and Eric, how you assessed your decks with this group at all.
Yeah.
But that's another total, it's a related topic, but I want to talk about the scenario stuff more first. Things just worked themselves out because everyone could do a little bit of everything, and we weren't trying to put all of the weight on some of our shoulders, right, and try to make everything turn out perfect. It just kind of worked out, and some of the cards were bad. I mean, corrosion got me. I got a combo of the ooze and filth, I think it is, the one that increases the shroud value of every location. That was drawn twice, and then I was last. I drew the corrosion, which killed both copies of boxing gloves because suddenly I was at a 4 or 5 shroud location. That was bad.
Yeah.
But you know, things have a way of working themselves out. So even though I was not able to fight anything after a while because the haunted patients or whatever they are in that spawn in the asylum halls, there's like 3 of them, and then they respawn, of course, because it's 4-player, and every time you attack them, it's a horror.
Yeah.
And that's just, I can't do that forever, right? It just does not, it's not sustainable for fighters. We still had enough across the team to just scrape by, and that was good.
I'm going to kind of bounce off of my previous things that I was saying about how like the burden of knowledge can sometimes lead you to worse situations than you think. And I think a big thing that happens, at least with Unspeakable Oath, for a lot of people who've played it a lot, is you kind of get in your head about, I'm going to get locked in here. And then it ultimately leads to you making more, like, as a player, more panicked decisions, right? Where it's just like, I need to get out, so I'm going to start taking stupid risks, where if I just did that thing, where if I just take a breath and, like, take it slow, I'll probably get more successful. But you don't know about that. Would you say that when you were playing with these 3 other new players, were you feeling like, I mean, the stakes couldn't have been lower for you. This was a deck that you just brought in, right? Like there was no actual like emotional investment into all of this. But would you say that you had more tension regarding the scenario than the 3 other players did?
Oh, absolutely. Because I had the knowledge, but also, you know, a little bit of pride coming into this group in the middle of it, right? I know 2 of the people. The other one said that they've seen some of my videos before, so I was like, all right, I can't just show up and just screw everything up for everyone, especially as the person who's taken on most of the fighting. So I had a lot of stress. But you're right, compared to other times that I've played it, the stakes were much lower, right?
Yeah.
I'm not worried too much about this deck that, you know, but yeah, I was, they were just kind of having a good time and I was having a good time too, honestly. It was fun, but we did have to talk through a lot and it wasn't just like everyone was doing their own thing. We were in trouble often, but again, it just kind of worked itself out.
Yeah. Well, also that's the everyone goes grabs a pitchfork when you say it, but I generally agree with you that like two-handed like two-player, not two-handed solo is the hardest way to play Arkham. And like four-player is like practically a vacation. People always take that personally, but it's not meant to be personal. It's just like objective fact at this point from all the years of playing this Arkham. I can bring any deck to four-player and just like someone will solve a problem when it shows up. And just there's less people to solve problems with less players, and then there's also more limited knowledge between the players as you get to less people playing. So it kind of just
What
all
was the
kind of
Wilson deck that you brought once that you were like, I'm here to get all the clues, and you didn't get a clue for like 3 turns or something?
yeah. It was a picture game day. Do I actually have that deck,
Yeah.
or did I delete it? I might have deleted it.
It wasn't a
But
bad deck. I think that was the first time you played Nose the Grindstone.
no, it wasn't a bad. I delete them when I put them on Patreon. So
Okay.
because I hate having decks around, like I just makes me angry. So I always delete them after I eternalize them on Patreon. But yeah, no, it's true. It's just like, and then there's also I'm gonna shout out to our someone from our Discord, from the PBG Discord, number one Nick, who always builds these elaborate combo decks because that's their style of play. Like they were building like this, they had this like Dexter deck that was just absolutely wild. But four-player gives you the time to do that. If you want to spend 7 turns setting up the combo, that gets you in the next 3 turns 6 turns of value, or like 8 turns of value. That's possible in four-player. In two-player, that becomes a lot harder because it just like, what are you doing? Right? Like,
Yeah.
it becomes so much harder to find the time to do that. There's less people to answer threats or solve problems as they show up. And it's just it's a very cool part of four-player. I love playing four-player for that reason, because it's just like you're allowed to do things that are a little bit more like free-flowing.
And I wonder from the game design standpoint how much they playtest at these different player counts, simply because a scenario like this is great. It's great at 4-player, even for people who are not optimizing the hell out of their decks or the gameplay, because it can work itself out. So I wonder how much they balance based on those sorts of things. Do they get experience of, what does a 2-player group look like going into this versus 4-player? What's their target? And I think I'm going to come back to this a bit when we talk about the decks a little bit more too. But obviously, I've already said these are not like world beater decks that have an elaborate combo going on. But when they don't have that, but they're probably built by more inexperienced players, they're going to get to where they need to get. They're just not that quick, right?
Yep.
So a 4-player game is much more forgiving in general in that respect. So we didn't get clues. I don't know. It's 12 clues to advance the first act, and we didn't do that for, I don't know, probably 5 or 6 turns. But that was fine. We didn't need to go any faster than that.
Yeah. I think that's a big thing that, unfortunately, even our own videos on both of our channels have kind of instilled in the hardcore players, is that if you're not going fast, you're losing. But I recently did a rewatch of Travis Brin and I's blind play of the Dunwich Legacy. And just seeing like these slapped together decks when we were sharing one collection. Travis just had the core set, the original core set, so we had 2 copies, and then Dunwich Legacy. That's all we had, right? You weren't spoiled for choice like you are in the current Legacy card pool. However, it was cool to see, and the reminder that this game actually just works if you just keep trying and you play that scrappy style of Arkham that I often say doesn't really exist anymore. It still does, but you're just given so much more by the card pool. And I think we actually also see this for when, funnily enough, when the designers play on stream.
Yeah.
Like this is absolutely no shade. I actually mean it as like a compliment, where I'm like, I like kind of like I'm watching and I'm like, what are these? Like, what's happening here? Like, it seems like everything always goes wrong, right? But then I realized that that's actually like what Arkham is meant to be, right? Where someone does a test where it's like, I'm only up 1 or 2. They're not like hyper focusing their decks to be super efficient. They're taking the risks and just like playing like what the game is. At this point now, I think I'm just like, I need to I miss that kind of like new player style of feeling where I'm just like not overthinking and overanalyzing everything I do. It's like when Eric, what did Eric bring recently? It was one of the runs we did. It wasn't the Joe Diamond Hunch deck. No, it was their Finn deck that just had Damning Testimony that they never played. And I remember it was like scenario 6 and they still had it in their deck. And I was just like, in my mind, first I was like, what's going on here? But then I was like, yeah, but like, they don't know. At the end, they were like, I don't think this card was worth it, or they eventually cut it, right? But it's that feeling of just like unknowledgeable Arkham is just so like precious to me.
Yeah, I agree, and that's kind of why we're doing this. And again, it's not that we're trying to say like, I don't know, looking at people from the outside and saying, but they could know so much more. That's kind of the opposite, really, is that we feel like we've missed something building these decks with the entire card pool, knowing and thinking about every little thing. And that's why I love playing the sealed decks with you, is that they kind of bring a bit of that back, where I'm just like, well, this is what I have, so we're going to try to make it work.
Yeah, it's also why I really enjoy the draft runs that Travis Byrne and I do, because I don't know if people I talked about it in the last podcast we did, but I had a Tony deck where all I had to fight in scenario 1 was a Kukri. And we also, well, I actually also left the scenario reference card on Hard Expert, and it was a nightmare of a time, but it's some of the most fun I've had playing Arkham. Additionally, we have 6 Frost tokens later on in this campaign, because Frost Boy died in the plane crash, which is never a good thing. And like, Bryn's going around not being able to take tests because he's gonna die, and we're just like slapping things together, and we're like not doing great, and it's fun, you know? Like, it's fun still to have these moments and like squeak out a victory, as opposed to just like scrub crushing the game and just being like, well, I full cleared it, which is still fun to do, mind you, but there's like differences for those vibes.
Yeah. And again, it's one of these things where it's like, look inward. And I had this conversation with you a bit after the game we played last week that went up on my channel, the in-depth gameplay video, where I really wanted to show off this Monterey Jack deck that I thought was interesting and good. And the game just gave me the middle finger right away, right? And
it gave you 2 middle fingers, actually.
It gave me 2 middle fingers. If you haven't watched this video, I think it's really great. It's a good video. And ultimately, at the end, you kind of talked me into like, actually, you know, maybe things didn't go our way, but it's good content for the fact that we were able to stop and think about how to play, and not just kind of say, I got all my toys in play, and it just sort of goes on autopilot. I went back and looked into it. By the way, I had this Alton O'Connell thing, and I never succeeded once by 3. That seems insane to me, that just never happened even on its own. I mean, that wasn't the point of the deck necessarily, but things would have been different had that ever worked. But afterwards, I was kind of bouncing between this whole, am I disappointed by what happened, or was I impressed by what happened? again, I'm not going to say exactly what happens, so you should go watch the video. But a new player or just casual players, whatever, would not have that dilemma. They'd say that was fun. We did well. It's not supposed to be about like all or nothing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, it's just we get so used to this. I want to build in a way to crush the game, and that when you even miss out on a little bit, you're like, what a miserable failure we were. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
no, that's not true at all.
Yeah. And I think that is just like the again, just like the burden of knowledge, right? Where you're like, I've done this scenario better. Why did I screw up this time? When it should be, wow, I lost, what is it? 6 XP, 5 XP, like right away, like, and I still did that good. Like, that's like the difference that like a new player would look at with that, or like a less enfranchised player in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And that was
Yeah, exactly.
also my when I did my list video at the start of the year, which I've been doing horribly, hitting my New Year's resolutions for Arkham's, by the way, everybody. I'm sorry, there will not be a new custom campaign. I've fallen into player card creation, which has resonated with me a lot more than custom campaign creation. But I had the big thing, which was what is winning in Arkham, right? Like, what is good? And I think that this is kind of like the whole thesis of this new thing. For a new player, good is a lot different to someone who is, in my mind now, overthinking what good is in Arkham, right? Like, it's not full clearing a scenario that's good. It's just getting the act resolution is like what is good in Arkham. And sometimes that is as simple as getting 3 cultists in the Midnight Masks. It's sometimes as good as getting 4, 5, or 6 of them, right? It's just, if you have found a way to get a result that leads to victory, that ultimately ends up with you getting the act advancement, that is a good scenario, right?
Yep. I agree.
Yeah.
And I think I've been playing a lot with you this past, 8, 10 months, whatever. So I'm kind of on that journey with you as well. And yeah, it's not to say that I was before thinking totally differently, but having a lot of different outcomes and sort of just thinking through that together has been helpful to get some more clarity on that picture too. I wanted to throw one more thing back to you kind of while we're on this topic. So I mentioned that I was surprised by people really wanting to explore the map. They want to see what every location does. And, maybe that shouldn't surprise me that much. But I wanted to ask you, like, what are some things you've noticed from Eric? What do they like to do that you're like, that's not something I would have expected, how you would engage with the game? Is there anything that you've maybe not said out loud to them, but just sort of internalized as that's an interesting choice?
That's a good question, and I'm not saying that just to fill time while I think of my answer, because I think my answer is unfortunately a little bit boring. Because the thing that I notice is just tempo. That's the thing. It's not like the fun little things where like Eric likes to explore the map to see what things are. Because Eric also, like, something that if people have been watching a lot of Travis, Britt, and I play other games in addition to this, or even in Arkham, there is like this saying I say where I'm like, we say like interact with content, interact with the game, right? Like interact with the mechanic, where even if it's not necessarily the right choice, the game is here to be engaged with, right? So just like engage with the game. And Eric is very good at engaging with the game. And I think my answer before would have been like that sort of thing, right? Where Eric is trying stuff out just to see what happens, and like that's a good way to learn. But I think a big thing is I have to just sometimes sit back and bite my tongue when it comes to the idea of tempo, where I'm just thinking in the back of my mind, it's like, you're only getting 1 clue this turn. That's not great. Now, what does that mean for next turn? We need to try to get like 3 clues to get ahead of this. And that's like a voice that I can't beat that comes in with just all that. So my answer is not really fun to that question, but I think it's a really good one. one thing I noticed, so actually I think Eric noticed too, was that Eric would also like play a lot of assets just because assets were cool. And I think Eric had an awakening with the Silas deck where it's just like, I was playing too many assets and I need to like refine that down. I love playing with patrons because there's a lot of different playstyles and perspectives. And one thing that I really enjoy seeing patrons do is build these wacky like things that they're doing with their assets or playing assets they're using in different ways, which I really enjoy seeing as well.
So I was, in this group, not really as a teacher. Like, that wasn't my role to teach the game. I mean, they're not. There's a few things I'll touch on in a second about like things that they didn't know about the rules, which I think are totally fair, and there's reasons for that.
I think we should talk about that new player and rules too. So I want to put a little reminder pin in that as well.
Sure. I mean, ultimately, these are like experienced card game players. They play competitive Netrunner, so it's not like building a deck is a foreign concept.
Yeah.
I mean, Eric plays Magic. Like, these are not people who are totally new to the idea. But I feel like even in that, even with that background knowledge, playing Arkham is just still different, right?
Yes.
You still have these tendencies that you might take from other games that don't work here, or there's just other complexity to this game that is kind of different. But regardless, like, as one person out of four versus like 1-on-1, do you think there's any difference in that dynamic? I think you mentioned to me off camera at some point, or maybe you did this with a discussion with Eric as well, about how you felt like you needed to step it up a bit when you played Innsmouth.
Yeah.
I've not seen any video yet, but do you have any like thoughts on like the deck building or how that's gone? Like, again, I wasn't able to do that or try to carry the team at all.
Yeah.
But I did feel a little bit of pressure to be like, okay, well, I better not screw up.
Well, it's like you said, your reputation was on the line as a little bit too.
Yeah, a little bit.
So I think with Eric, Eric's having a lot of fun in Innsmouth, and a big part is my Ursula deck is disgusting. I think Ursula is very good in 2-player. I think she's like amazing in 2-player. I think she like individually can go to like A+ tier. She's kind of basically like, she's very close to Rex Murphy in 2-player. And we all know Rex is really good in 2-player.
We've seen it.
And Eric has been having a great time, and I think it's because we're winning. Because Eric was starting to feel a little bit like beat down because we kept losing, and that's why I looked at myself and I was like, okay, I think I need to start doing some more heavy lifting. And I think a big part of this is because in 2-player, there's no one there to pick up the slack if, my deck is a little bit like I never went out of my way to build like a bad deck for Eric, right? But I would be like, I played Hemlock Vale and I was like, I had a theory that Rita Young would be good in Hemlock Vale. And I think that my first version of that deck wasn't great. Because I think a big thing is that this is going to sound funny because I know what your feelings on this lately, but I think in 2-player, when you're playing with when you're playing with people, killing enemies is the easy part, which sounds crazy because it can go wrong so quickly, right?
Yeah.
But when you're playing, I think this is more so true when you're playing with new players, where the clue tempo is so much more important, right? If I'm killing the enemies that show up, but the new player is only grabbing 1 or 2 clues when we needed you to grab 3 or 4 this turn, like, we're going to eventually fall behind and we're going to have more stress to close out the rest of the scenario. So
I think that makes sense, right? Because the fewer encounter cards that you draw is really only because you're going quicker, right? And getting clues. But if you can handle the enemies as soon as they show up, it's like a free encounter draw, right?
Yes.
You're not letting them stick around an extra round, so it doesn't really... I mean, it matters, but it doesn't matter as much if you have to take extra rounds.
Yeah, like sorry for like the vague spoilers to Innsmouth, who people who watch this, but trust me, I'm not really spoiling anything in great detail here. But say, for example, what happened in that scenario and then that campaign, Eric grabs a deep one from the encounter deck and smushes it with their sledgehammer, right? So Eric just like nullified their encounter card, right? Like, that's done. Yeah. That's solved. That's like, they basically didn't draw anything. And then I, as Ursula, don't get any clues. Eric did that for nothing, right?
Right.
So I need to get those clues in order to kind of match what Eric put out into the world, right? Like Eric solved their encounter card. Or even my own encounter card. Eric, like I draw an enemy, Eric draws an enemy, Eric kills both of them because they're just like two health enemies. They're free, right?
Right.
And then I just like don't do my job. That's like basically Eric did that for nothing. And I think that when you get to 3 or 4 players, there's more people who can solve that problem, right? So like even if you couldn't kill that enemy, someone else probably could finish it off, right? Or get like
or
that
you get
extra
to the
health.
point in the scenario where you've built up enough where someone can take on fighting 2 enemies that just were drawn, right? And it's not a big deal, right? At the beginning of the scenario, you're in such more vulnerable position that you're not really able to do that sort of thing. And in 2-player, I feel like you're always a bit on the back foot in that same way. In 4-player, I mean, I guess we said this already today, so I'll cut it. But you can play a million assets, and then you're like, well, we draw 3 enemies, I can get them all right now, no problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that the hardest thing is just that, because I think that the understanding of killing enemies becomes easier to new players. Mm-hmm. Once I told Eric, you want to be looking for a weapon that deals 2 damage and attack, Eric was like, okay, got it. But I also just should have said, yeah, but you also want to try to find a way to get like 2 clues, an investigate action, if possible, right? As much as like, and that's why I think that fingerprint kit, Travis and Bryn have been playfully nipping at each other in our Edge of the Earth run, because Bryn still says fingerprint kit does nothing, but Travis is a big fan of fingerprint kit because it's just a gun for clues, right? It just gets you extra actions. And that's just like an easy way, I think, for new players to see this is kind of what you're aiming for. And I'm not even like a big fan of fingerprint kit. Like, I don't think the card's bad, but it's just not my play style, right? Everyone knows my play style is to just like death by 1,000 cuts to the game. Right. But I think that that's kind of the important thing of why to learn that what tempo is. And I don't think it's a surprise or an accident that I shift my Arkham experience for when I started to get good at that game was after we started to do the Understanding Arkham series. Once I understood what tempo was, because that was all Travis doing that. Travis like led that video. Travis wrote the script for that video, like for all the slideshows. The thing that I added was like the treachery knowledge. When I said how it feels to, like the idea of ward of protection in something feels like such good tempo, right? Or like killing an enemy in one action feels good. How you know what tempo is because it's an action that feels right. Like that's what I added. Like I was still very much like a vibes based and like with my analysis. But Travis really brought in like the actual technical part, and that's when I started to improve. So I think knowing what tempo is code what you said. Like Eric plays a lot of Magic and Netrunner, but tempo in Arkham, like, and even these players, I bet you saw it, they were taking actions that you wouldn't seem as like hyper tempo efficient, but if you just keep doing enough, you'll get there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting because maybe this is a good time to switch over to the deck building. So, first off, this was the team. The team was and I didn't actually know this before I showed up. I should have asked, but it didn't really matter since I was given this Nathaniel Cho deck. But it was a Diana Stanley, Safina Rousseau, and Rex Murphy.
Okay.
And this is an untabooed Rex Murphy.
Oh, let's go!
I guess I can mention it right now. I was a little bit shocked that and maybe this is, again, a newer player, the Rex Murphy untabooed ability was not as impressive as I had thought.
Yeah.
Mostly because the way that we would play the game, knowing that you can investigate 4 times and get 2 clues each investigate, is just not the way that everyone plays the game, right?
Yeah.
You wouldn't be thinking your first shot at the investigator, how can I squeeze as much value as I can out of this ability? You have to know how scenarios play too in order to do that, right? I need to move myself to these locations at the right time. They even had Pathfinder, but Higher Ed and Dr. Milan, I would say, was really what made this deck go nuts eventually.
Yeah,
because he was doing some other stuff. He was using Occult Invocation, I think, to deal damage, using Blood Rights here and there, stuff that we would expect that a 4-player Rex Murphy just wouldn't bother doing because it should be someone else's problem. But that's the power of Seeker, right? You can do enough of your stuff and then some because you can get enough ahead. I mean, so he was definitely using his ability once per round and sometimes twice. Yeah. But it wasn't like insane like I was worried about. But the Higher Ed Dr. Milan thing is, that was nuts.
It's not even just like the power of Seeker there. I think that's the power of new players, where like they want to solve all problems that get in their way, right? Like they're very much like, I need to be able to solve everything. But in 4-player, exactly what you're saying with Rex, we would have been like, I'm here to literally be Clue Robot, and you must get everything out of the way of Clue Robot, or Clue Robot's going to tip over, right? And we don't want that. We want Clue Robot to just keep getting clues. But that's an interesting thing from for like how newer players or like less try hard with love players.
Yeah, and I get it. Like maybe I think this deck was originally built for maybe a 2 or 3 player. Like I think they'd played Ruger or something at some point. I don't know. But the Safina deck struggled a bit. They're working with a collection that was just through Innsmouth, I think. I think it included Innsmouth. So nothing after that. And Safina's just kind of an investigator to me that's always been what do you do with her? And with the card pool at that point, what we saw was a Dario that got a lot of money.
I've seen that exact Safina deck, so I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
And unfortunately, this was a double deck that didn't see its copy of double.
I've seen that many times too.
Yep. and no shade to the player here, but they missed exceptional as a keyword and thought it was just 4xp. I get to put 2 copies in. So we corrected that before the scenario, but that was one oopsie, and the other one was the Rex deck had I don't know which strange solution, but they thought that if they researched it, they could just pick whichever one to upgrade into without spending the XP. The new thing just says researched on it, so I can see that can be an easy mistake.
Yeah.
But you know that happens with. I mean, even I see the exceptional confusion all the time. You know, they think that Underworld market costs 2, right? I see that so much on comments on Reddit and elsewhere. And to me, this is not a shade on the players. It's more of a what did we get wrong from the design standpoint? Because people aren't going to dig through rule books, to look this stuff up all the time.
Yeah, like maybe it's one of those things where if the game was made today, exceptional XP pips would be like flames or stars or something. They would be like a different shape, right? Oh, wow,
and most
man.
People...
Oh, could you imagine if they had that? And like there was like a card that was like 1 star XP, 1 regular XP was level 2 but cost 3?
Ooh.
Oh, man.
We got to do that. Yeah. Right? I mean, I think there's so many lessons from playing Arkham to me is like, if I ever design a game in the future, I'm like, okay, don't do these things. And that's not the game designers should have known better, but it's just something that happens through having a game that's out there for 10 years now, or almost 10 years.
Yeah.
And that's fine. Engage, evade, exhaust, that was another slight confusion in the middle of the scenario, but it wasn't, I was like, oh, engage and exhaust, these are 2 separate things? Yeah, they tend to go together, and maybe that was a design choice that could have been hammered out a little bit more before the rule books were written. But I don't bemoan the players for making these mistakes at all. I think that's just they're so common, right? I mean, I made mistakes at first, right? I think we all did all kinds of things, and probably the exceptional thing was only drilled into my head because of Arkham DB. Like, it forces you to do things correctly, and if you don't use Arkham DB, Arkham Build then it's easy to miss.
I think this is something that you've said to me very recently, and I agreed wholeheartedly. And I think that the community also needs to understand is that, and when I say the community, I mean like the people who watch videos and consume the content. There's a lot of people playing Arkham who don't engage with anything except their one box of Arkham that they play for fun. And I think that that is something that we all need to remember, is that most people playing Arkham are just like playing it just a few times, having a good time, putting it back on the shelf. Maybe they're at the store and they see another expansion and they're like, oh, I liked that game, I should buy another one of these, right? Like, not everyone has fallen down the rabbit hole and jumped right into Arkham, right? Like, that's not the norm. I'm with you where I believe it is the exception. And I would wager that, like, these players you played with, for the most part, probably fit into this kind of like bubble that we're talking about.
Yeah, and I had to put a little bit of a little stop on myself too. Like when the Diana player drew her weakness, and she's like, "Oh, I have to take 5 horror. I'll just cancel 2 that with." I'm like, "All right, do whatever you want. I don't care."
yeah, 100%. Like that's too deep. That's I'm not gonna bring up the FAQ right now. I'm not gonna do any of that. We're just gonna do what the cards say and not think too hard. That's something that, this is what I want to talk about for the rules for new players. I'll notice when Eric makes mistakes, and if they aren't game breaking, I'll just let it slide, because sometimes it's just better than going nuts. And like, I understand this is even like when the designers were having a stream and they made a mistake and everyone in the chat was correcting them, and I was there pulling my hair out, being like, why does it matter? Or like when I was watching Rodney Smith play with I forget the actor's name, but they were like also just playing and having fun, and everyone was just like, they made one mistake and everyone in the chat was going crazy, and I'm like, it does not matter, right? Like, just let it.
You know how to play this game.
Like, just like let it slide. So like, there's like some stuff where it's like Eric. There was one where Eric was, when we played Min, and Eric had like an extra hand slot item. I should have noticed that. That to me is, I think, like something that you should point out. But at the same time, if Eric, I don't know, accidentally, or exactly that with like Diana Stanley, like if Eric tried to cancel Diana's weakness or Sisters Mary weakness with a deny existence, for that scenario, I wouldn't be like, you idiot, that's not how that works. How dare you, right? But at the end of the campaign, I'd be like, hey, just so you know, next time they've actually ruled it like this for that, right? Because that's just like how it works.
And I also feel like, since I'm not playing on video for something like that, I'm in more of a position where I'm like, you know what? Because you're reading it in this way, and probably literally everyone else read it in this way when it was first printed, I think this is just a mistake. The wording on this card doesn't really match how people read it, and I have no idea what the intention was. But if it's written this way and the FAQ is supposed to apply, like, there's something's wrong, and I don't want to enforce this sort of weirdness on the game on a newer player just because there's been these FAQs about it. It's just like, I think this is on the designers. This is not on us for not understanding the rules properly. There's other things that I wouldn't let slide by, based on just like, oh, this is how the game works. Fine. But stuff like that, for each, when you have a choice to take damage or do something else, it just doesn't feel right for the card. No. It's not something I want to bug them about.
I always knew it wasn't. It was it's like same with like Branica Thugga. If I was playing with a table and they were like hit someone and they were like, okay, I dealt you 1 damage after missing, I'd be like, let it ride, brother. Like, that sounds good to me, because I still remember that card when they did a poll of how it worked. It was literally 50-50, which is, I generally don't get too angsty about stuff, but man, that threw me for a loop. Like, that should not happen, where a card is a 50-50 split on how it works. Caramba.
Yeah, And you know me, I like to talk about the rules and think about the rules, but ultimately the reason I'm doing that isn't because I want to be like, actually, you should play it
Mm-hmm.
this way. It's more of a what went wrong here?
Mm-hmm.
Why are people confused about how these cards are written, and what can we do about that?
You're like
Whether
a
that's for the future
you're like a
or for
forensic
just like
anthropologist on the rules. Yeah. You're like, what
yep,
went
that
wrong? Yeah, what happened here?
yeah, exactly. So like I'm not looking at these to be, let's be technically correct, the best kind of correct,
Mm-hmm.
but rather that we're trying to figure out where in the rules this is saying something and why the hell are we all confused about why it says this in 10 different ways. So
Yeah.
I feel like when I'm playing with newer players, that's the perfect reason not to bring that stuff up because it
Yes.
doesn't matter. And this is probably on the design team to have fixed in some way in the future.
Yep. All right, we have 10 minutes. What about this
Okay,
deck? So we have this deck here,
great.
the Nacho deck. So
Okay, so we've talked about the other three decks a little bit. This is the deck that I was given, and I was told that they got 1 XP in Echoes of the Past, which isn't great. Another new player mistake there. They didn't know that they could continue to play and get all the clues off of the hidden library. It's
mm-hmm.
a you may advance kind of situation, and they were just like, well, it was late, and we just finished the scenario. But it's there's only 8 XP, 9 going into Unspeakable Oath, which is a bit low for my experience in this campaign. I would prefer to have like 8 after the first scenario,
Sure.
but that's okay, right? We have to shift our expectations. So I wanted to throw this to you. If you had 1 XP in this deck, which has things like, again, no shade to whoever built this. I can see some of the reasons why they did so. But we got Relentless. I would never try to put that into a deck today. I tried playing it. It was just as bad as you'd think it was.
Yeah.
We've got If It Bleeds. We've got Emergency Aid, I think is the other one that seems a little dodgy. Like, what would you do here? What's missing to you? From this deck?
Uh, what is missing from this? So can I ask? Is this like, did they put something in? Like, was there a 1 XP card in here, or did you have to put 1 XP in? You
I
did.
put 1
Okay.
XP in. So I wanted to test to see if you match what I did or not.
All right. Well, I have to look at some 1 XP cards here.
Sure.
All right.
Again, I don't think it's a bad deck, but you can see that there's like only the Vicious Blows. And I went back
Yeah.
to the Nathaniel Cho deck, which this clearly was started with in some capacity. And that's all it has for skills. The upgraded overpower is, level 2. So, ugh.
Well, I know what I would do, but that's because there's only one thing I would ever do, and that's my boy Sweeping Kick. I sell 1 XP. That's probably what I would be putting in here. If
I
I'm
knew
looking
you
at just
would.
events, yeah, it's a kill spell, and I probably would cut. I mean, I'd cut a Relentless in a heartbeat. I'd
Hmm.
be like, no, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. That's not what I did. I cut the 2 copies of Emergency Aid, and I
Hmm.
put in a 1 XP Hunter's Armor.
Nice for
And
some horror soak.
yes, that was
Yeah.
basically why I thought, I really need some extra horror soak in this campaign, and I probably play that card way too much. You probably have seen me play it a lot, but I think it's a good value for 2 cards for 1 XP in this case.
Yes. Yeah. 100%.
Um, okay, here's why I kept the Relentless. It's got better icons than Emergency Aid for Nathaniel Cho.
Yeah, that's fair. As the fist instead.
Yeah,
I
that's basically it.
Yeah, the reason I cut the Relentless is just because I would get mad if I drew it. Like I could see myself playing this eventually. Like if I drew it, I'd be like look at it and be like, "Oh god, no." But like if I drew Relentless, I'd be like, "What are you doing here?" And I imagine that is how you felt once you were after you played it. And I imagine it's not long
Yeah,
for this world. But I mean, I think ultimately both of those are pretty alright changes.
yeah.
Like
So in
either of those are
four-player,
fine to cut.
it's a little odd to have like the evidence and scene of the crimes in here, I think. That was kind of my
Yeah.
first take on that.
Yeah, I agree with
Um,
that.
I used them because, I kind of needed to get a few clues to
Especially
help
with a
push
Rex
things.
Murphy. But this goes to what I was
Yeah.
saying, where like a new players, they don't wanna like that like hyper like focusing hard on like your role isn't really a thing for new players, right? They just try to want to do a little bit of everything because they're kind of taught that way to do a little bit of everything.
Right.
And it's the same like if you see someone transition from Marvel Champions to Arkham. Marvel Champions, again, you're kind of built to do everything. And I think that that was Arkham's intention and original design. And going back to the thing we were talking about earlier in the video, maybe it's more fun that way, right? Like maybe Nat Cho doesn't need to be the S tier killing machine that he can be. He could just be like a normal guy playing with other normal guys doing the things that feel more in flavor for what Arkham Horror is intending to be.
Yeah, it was still fun playing with this deck. The other thing I should mention is if it bleeds, I actually played it because it turns out healing exactly one horror after killing the Beast of Aldebaran is good.
Yeah.
I would have died otherwise. I needed the one horror. This just needs spirit on it. I don't know why it doesn't have spirit.
Man, I wish this card was just like if it's just like heal one horror instead of the horror value. It was just like a glory for horror healing.
Yeah.
Because like
I'm keeping it in there. I have 6 XP to spend. I have
it's
to
horror
keep it in
healing.
there.
I'm not surprised. It's like it is kind of like the same thing as your hunter's armor, right? Like, and you don't need to spend an action to do it, which sounds like I'm trying to defend if it bleeds here, but that is big, right? Like, yeah, I wish it did also have spirit. It's so empty and bare here.
I know, and it just would help with this deck to be able to draw it a little bit easier. But I think otherwise it's fine. Like ultimately, what am I doing with the deck? We're playing counterpunch. Like the fact that they upgraded the get over here's and counterpunches immediately, I think was great.
Yeah.
I recurred with my Elder Sign the counterpunches I think a few times, so that's
Nice.
really good.
Well, they probably
And-
got, like, especially Get Over Here is really good against the Man of the Pallid Mask, so they probably saw him in Echoes of the Past, and then also, like, the, I mean, they got, like, a good thing for, because leading into this with the, going into Echoes of the Past, so, to grab the Seekers of Carcosa.
Yeah, it was probably very good in that scenario. Yeah, I can't grab the Man of the Pallid Mask, right, because it's elite.
Oh, he is elite.
Yeah, but that's still fine. It's very good in this campaign, I think, for... I think just to the end, it's you use it during the Mythos phase to get an extra damage off. It's great. Everything else is good. It's just like you look at the skill column and you're like, gosh, I wish I could pass a Mythos phase test. Like there's so many willpower tests that just deal you damage or horror rather. And I was like, just biting my nails every time a 4 willpower test, the yellow sign, that's the card, was drawn. I was like, thank God it wasn't me, because. So,
Man,
I mean, otherwise it's fine. Like it's Nathaniel Cho. You've talked about how even in current, he's still like the best fighter that you've got. So
he's got his deck. He's got his boxing gloves. He's got his events that deal a crap ton of damage with him. It's actually funny. I didn't even notice the lack of Mythos protection, but that just again shows how everyone's even different even on our level, right? Like we talk about all these differences for new players.
yeah.
And if people who have watched me play on your channel, if I die, I die. Right?
Yeah,
like
I had to get Randall Cho out on like the last turn to not die.
yeah.
It was grim. It's those haunted patients in the middle of the room that just in the middle of the map that just body you with horror. So yeah, I mean it's a tough scenario. It's a really good one. But even playing with certainly non-optimized decks, again on 4-player, we were able to get through it and it was very fun. I had a great time. Again, I'm just gonna say this again. I'm not showing this deck off to say like, oh my goodness, what's wrong with the person who made this, but just to learn a little bit more about like without all of our echo chamber stuff, right? Like what do people do on their own if they're adapting the Nathaniel Cho deck to their collection? Tetsuo Mori is a great ad, right? That gets the boxing gloves back if you need to or search for it.
And soaks, yeah.
It's a good soak. There's good stuff. I mean,
like I look at this deck and like I would play it. Like again, there's no dunk in here. There's nothing of that. I would. It's like when I did the play all card challenge and I had that realization that the game's card pool is actually more open than people think. I was referring to like myself, and I think that ultimately a good chunk of the analysis and people's perspectives haven't caught up to that idea that like because I remember all the discourse, even around rogues not having economy, but then I was like, wait a minute, they still have the Mauser. Like, that's drip economy. Like, that is econ. And I think people are just like, so it's that burden of knowledge. There's just like, this is the only thing. I only know Faustian bargain. There's a world outside of that that is still very functional that I think people aren't there yet. And I think that looking at a new player's deck is a good way to perhaps discover something like that.
Yeah. It's also interesting to me to have to play some of these cards, because once you're in the game, you're like, I'm the kind of person who just wants to get some value out of everything if I can. And playing things like dodge, I don't usually put dodge in a deck like this because I think it could just be a different card. I want to kill things first, but when you can move a couple times to start moving yourself out of the asylum and just dodge.
Yep.
Oh, this is the great moment. It was the guy that you draw that you have to say take a horror or it gets +3 fight until the end of the investigation phase. And taking a horror would, of course, have killed me. So I moved twice with dodge, and then I think I moved I did have to take one attack opportunity. I moved 3 times, dodged twice, and then in the enemy phase, I played the counterpunch because it's no longer the investigation phase.
Yeah.
So he's back down to just 2 fight and killed him.
Nice, yeah.
And the dodge made that work. Right.
That's why I've been talking about dodge for a while. Is I've said like it's that new player think dodge is good, and then there's like the enlightened player that thinks dodge is good, and then like everyone else is like down here. But I do think that it's not like something you're going to miss if it's not there, but it does change how you can approach solving puzzles on your turn, which I think could be pretty big.
Yeah, I mean, I play the card. It's just I really wish that was like a guts.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Or the 3 cards could have been. Yeah, that's it.
That's it. We were a bit over the 1 hour, but only by 2 minutes, so that's not too bad. We can take that. But this was a very fun topic of conversation, and I think something that's very, I think just something that I've been trying to get into myself more, which is the idea that Arkham can be fun if you're not trying to be perfect at it, right? It can still just be a good time. Yeah.
Yeah, and it helps us sometimes refocus and think about our own content of like, who are we talking to, right? Are we talking to the players who've been playing since the very beginning? Are we talking to people who are just tuning in for the first time? What kind of content do they need to hear? What kind of content do other people need to hear? You know how like you did your understanding Arkham stuff, but it's been a while, you know? What else, do we have to say about those sorts of topics these days? And I think your content with Eric is filling that void often. So
yeah. All right, everybody. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this podcast, and thank you for bringing this topic, Daniel. It was very fun to chat about with you. So other than that, there will be another podcast down the road. We don't have like a set schedule for these, but we are revisiting them more, which has been super fun. But in the meantime, I want to thank all of you guys for joining for this, as well as everyone who is pledged on the Patreon. You guys all rock. In the meantime, thank you so much for watching. Have a good one. And as always, GG's.